Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this final part of the series that we have been following. Um, I do trust that at least, if not anything else, the series have tickled your interest in what's happening in the world of business. If they haven't, I hope they will, because I did mention at the beginning that I have a sense that the next major global thing is going to be economic. Well, we've had a little dose of it with the war in Iran and the changing oil prices. I was talking to my son in Australia. He was telling me that they were at one point considering lockdown again because of no fuel, beginning to ration fuel and things like that. So um, there's no question that the world is going through a kind of earthquake in many, many ways. So today I would like us to wrap up this series. It's part 5. And let me just get my presentation going. It's part 5, but as you're going to see, it is not the end of this because it's going to dovetail into something else. And we will be announcing that shortly. What comes next? I hope you can you see my, no, you haven't yet. I haven't shared yet. Let me just share my slides here. I think that is it. Can you confirm that you can see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, it's actually
Can see
part
the
5.
slides.
Sorry. That slide is saying part 4 there. It's actually part 5. All right. So before I go into the main presentation, I just want to say that I came back from a conference, as some of you did, from the richest country on earth, the DRC. Then it's this country. We had a prayer conference there a couple of weeks ago. Almost, when did we go? About 3 weeks ago. And we were actually standing on the soil, at least as is known now, it may be other places, but as is known now, potentially the richest country in the world, the DRC, with extraordinary natural wealth. Estimates are 24 trillion, but I think that's outdated. Um, if you look at the way the dollar has been going, this is much more than this. That's the amount of money that is in that country. It's comparable to the annual GDP of the United States. Uh, that is the amount down there, untouched, unprocessed. When you process it, it would end up being much bigger than that. So when you place the potential God had placed in the Democratic Republic of Congo, it's really among um, the world's largest economies potentially. Only the US and China can match that scale. And yet, um, when you add value to what they have, you realize that this country would really be a very, very, very wealthy country. But it is not, it is certainly not a poor country, because when you look at it, so if I may go back here, I think it's just the image I wanted you to see there of how much God has put in that country. The experience is very different. And those of you who traveled to the DRC will bear witness that the experience of what you see when you land there and what you experience is very different. There's this very, very big disparity between the potential of that country and what it could be, having been independent now for 70 years about. Oh, coming, no, not 70, it's still coming to 70 years, not yet. And what it is now. It's a country that is a picture of the result of the present global economic system, where countries and companies are benefiting tremendously from that country, but putting in very, very little. And actually, almost in some cases, ensuring that the country remains really poor. It's an unjust system. I'll address that. And And I believe God is at work because remember this series are looking at the evolution of global economies with a biblical lens. We've been giving facts. Today I want to put on the lens to help us interpret from a biblical sense some of the things that are going on. So if I may take the next slide, you can see that this is certainly not a poor country. If you look at natural wealth of the DRC in red, and then the top GDPs, annual GDPs, United States, China, Germany, and this is the natural wealth in DRC. But the unfortunate situation is that the current global economic order, and we need to get familiar with these terms, the way the world is structured now, let me put it that way. The way the world is structured now, it is structured to ensure that countries like that, countries like ours, cannot really play in the global economy. That is part of the unseen war that is going on. The structure, the global structure, does not allow us. It's not because we are lazy. That lie should be thrown out of the window. Africans are not lazy. Africans are some of the most hardworking people in the world. But the structure does not allow us to play properly. Now, this is not to take away our responsibility as a continent. It is not to remove it. Yes, we do have a responsibility, but I think those who oversimplify it by just saying that Africans are lazy, that is wrong. That is not correct. The systems and structures, and I'll also give you some more facts to appreciate this. And now this is an infographic that shows, you can expand it on your phone to see potential wealth. In terms of resource richness, God has gifted us very, very greatly. And I think being in Congo just brings this to light because when you're in a certain place, there are things you see and feel more than you'd feel otherwise. But we've had a problem of historical extraction, the legacy of colonialism, where they built systems to extract resources, not to build economies, and then poor infrastructure, railways, ports. We cannot, and even those that were built, they were built to just move things out of the continent. And that is still the story up to now. No industrialization. They did not have an obligation to develop us, but our economies were developing at a certain point. There are many things were stifled, which could have, if I like, with collaboration, could have developed. Yeah, so we still have a challenge as we talk about global economies. We're coming down to Africa now. We're one of the richest regions on earth in natural resources, but we've not been able to transform this. So really, our future hinges on shifting from extracting things to value addition. There are things you've heard that so many times. Value addition, value addition, value addition. And then we'll see who controls the value chain because whoever controls the value chain controls the wealth. And that is now one of the things I mentioned. By the way, I drew a lot from this series to teach in the sessions I was given at the Africa House of Prayer Conference. Those of you who are following this series would have noted that I drew a lot because we're talking about redigging Africa's wells. And one of those wells is the wells of wealth. Wells of wealth. God knew what he was doing when he put what he put here. So those wells have been blocked. They've been blocked by the global financial system. The current world order has blocked. We've been born in it. We've not known anything else. It's like if you look at the Israelites who were born in slavery in Egypt, they did not know anything else. That is how you are born. You saw your father laboring, your mother being beaten. All that's the norm. So it's even hard to imagine anything different. And when the norm gets disturbed, no wonder even the Israelites were saying, "Why are you disturbing us, Moses? You've since you came here, the Pharaoh is so hard on us." Most of us are the times we have grown in. When things begin to shift, you say, "Oh, we're disorganizing." But I just want to say that for God to bring something new, He has to overthrow the old. That is the mandate of Jeremiah, I've anointed you as a prophet, to pull down, to root up, to to root out I'm a dentist, so when you take a root out, when you remove the teeth, it is not easy. Yeah? There's a bit of stuff involved in uprooting, to destroy and then to build. So whenever God has to bring something new, phase one is breakdown. And I believe personally that's what's going on around the world now. That there's a shaking that is breaking down the system as we've known it. Because the system, when you're used to an unfair system, you think that's the norm. But the system, the global financial system, is not fair. It's absolutely not fair. And God is a God of justice. So I'll just include this on the slide. Some of you have seen this, but if you haven't, I just will show it to you. That's one of the lies about Africa. That Africa, if you look at the maps, the Mercator maps we use, they are distorted. Africa actually, uh, with the size of over 30 million square kilometers, is larger than the US, China, India, and most of Europe combined. You can fit all of them inside Africa. You can fit them all in. Japan, all this. So we are underrepresented on the maps as well, according to Mercator projection distortions. This size has implications: huge resource potential, massive population capacity. The capacity of population is actually big. Significant economic opportunity. Again, one of the lies is that we are overpopulated in Africa. We are not overpopulated by any chance. There is a challenge because of the economic issues that we're not looking after our populations well. But by any stretch of imagination, Africa is not overpopulated. But you'll hear those things. Significant economic opportunities. So these are things that have to be redressed. This is a slide courtesy of of uh, courtesy. Uh, Let me just again a picture of the reserves. So these are some of the things we covered in the conference. For those of you who have just joined, I'm just giving a little bit of a recap. That there's so much business potential on this continent which has been stifled. This is the world economy in 2025. You can see the red part is China. The blue part is the United States. Then the others follow Europe. If you look at Africa, it's like a tiny part somewhere there. But even this is distorted. It depends on where you're looking. I have a very simple thing to say. If this is true, then Africa is insignificant. Okay, then shut up, Africa. Shut up. No imports, no exports. Just shut it out because it's insignificant. The global economy would collapse. Uh, at least some things, if you just shut out one country, the DRC, you'd have a huge problem with mobile phone around the world. Okay. So we need to come back to understand who we are, but also to understand what God is doing. So to say that is it, okay, maybe if you're looking at it in certain figures, but if you look about contribution, if you cut out Africa's contribution in terms of natural resources, there would be a problem. There would be a very big problem globally. Okay, so let's get back. Those were just some of the things we talked about in the conference. I would encourage you, I don't know if the materials are out. You can take time to listen to the sessions. Very, very powerful conference, which difficult, difficult, because there was a lot of spiritual resistance, and which manifested in so many different ways. But it was addressing a very, very key thing, and there was a great sense that we are in a season of fulfillment. What do you call it? Fullness of time. Fullness of time, things move fast. Fullness of time. Okay, right. Let's get back to our series. And I did mention when we were looking at the beginning, when we started, that we'll be looking at this topic with a global lens. We've talked a lot about global things. We've talked about an African lens as well. I've just given you some African perspectives. And the biblical lens. I've not used the biblical lens so much. I want to do a bit of it today as we wrap up. So the first part we looked at was the historical part. We went through all that the stuff, the barter trade and all the different kinds of trades that were taking place. We brought it up to 1913, and I'll try to generate some infographics just to give you a rough idea of the main points as far as I understand it. 1913 was a major one. We've not even unpacked that in detail, what happened around that time. The bringing of the gold standard and things like that. And then we went to 1970 to present day. And in part 4, we looked at the future of global economies and currencies. So I'd encourage those of you who have not seen this to go back and look at them. Today, I would like to really bring things to a conclusion. As I said, it's a very, very big overview of past to future. Futurists like doing that. It's one of the things I do as a futurist, looking at things from taking a step back, looking at how things are evolving and where things are going. I'll make some comments about that as we go along, but let me just highlight some of the key events. 1913 was a very major one. And I generated it. By the way, I used this is AI generated to help us understand the rearrangements that happened there with the Federal Reserve Act in the United States. That is something you'll probably hear a lot more about in the coming days because it had huge implications. Central banking systems that was not there before. That's where that goes back. I know the central banks all are linked to the Bank of International Settlements, which is in Switzerland. There are big implications in all that. On some of the things we talked about, bringing stability to the monetary systems. We talked about the rise of the US dollar at that time and increased financialization. And we also touched on the impact on the developing economies. At that time, we were under colonial rule, and colonists had their agenda, of course. Martin, help me with that meeting people into the room, please. And the impact on developing economies and things like that. So again, a quick recap for you, some of the consequences you can see in the infographic. If you take a screenshot of it, you'll get a summary of the main things. Now, we did mention from 1913, 1945, the next major stop. 1913 was a year before the First World War. That should also tell you a few things, which it was just a year, months before the First World War. So the First World War takes place. And then the next stop was in 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement. Again, just before the war ended, was a new arrangement that came in on how the world would run. It's important to note that in these big meetings, Africa was not represented really at all. It's been the story over time. But this was how they now came to peg the dollar to gold, and the gold standard. I mean, the fixed rate exchange rate of the dollar. The dollar becomes the reserve currency of the world, and that run 45, 55, 65, so about 30. The 55, 65, about over 20 something years until the US got into trouble with the war in Vietnam. And then there was an oil crisis. And that fixing of currency with the dollar was supposed to be the reserve, but the dollar is also supposed to be linked to gold. That was suspended. President Richard Nixon suspended. The images there are pretty small, so you may just want to take a screenshot and look at them later, but we talked about this in detail. And so they left a floating exchange rate system, and we looked at the impacts of that, the economic volatility, and some of the long-term results that happened. Now, I'm going to skip one slide here. Okay. Yeah, I think I need to skip that slide. I'll bring it back. Remind me if I forget to bring up a slide at the end at a certain point. So Martin, please remind me. As I said, I'd like to look at the things from a biblical lens. And one of the things the Bible talks about is the system of Babylon. And I'll just we see, and I'm going to go to the end. I'll not come from the beginning, but Babylon was actually a physical empire that was the head of gold, if you remember, in the vision that God gave Nebuchadnezzar, and it was the biggest of systems. Babylon, the term Babylon is often used to describe the world economic system that is opposed to God. And we see in the book of Revelation, chapter 14, that a time comes when this system is judged. Says another angel, a second, followed, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all nations drink the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. And in chapter 16, there's another reference to this. The great city was split in three parts. God remembered Babylon the Great to make her drink the cup of the wine of fury of his wrath. So Babylon expresses itself politically, economically, socially in many different ways. But I'll look specifically for the context in which we are looking at economic Babylon. Okay, economic Babylon. Economic Babylon is a global economic system built on power, built on control, and unequal exchange. Unequal. The emphasis there is unequal exchange. One of the principles that God gives out when He's introducing the nation of Israel to His way of doing things, He says God hates unjust scales. That means you're doing things unfairly. You're going to buy something, and someone has put an extra weight on this side, or so that when you buy, you get less than what you actually have. Or you have these weighing scales. You're going to buy a kilo of rice, but the one who made the kilo made it less than a kilo. So it says 1 kilo on top, but it's not 1 kilo. Huh? It's actually much less than 1 kilo. So you walk away with maybe 800 grams of rice instead of 1,000. So that was how it used to work in those days. Now, this translates to all of business, all of business. When one party comes and offers something which is not the same value of the other, that's an unequal exchange. And Babylon is built on that. It's built on an equal exchange, it's built on power, it's built on control, it's built on suppression. Okay. And what happens as a result is that wealth is concentrated in a few centers, while others mainly supply resources or labor. This is the story of the DRC, which I began with. It's a story of Africa. So wealth is created in one place, but captured elsewhere. That is the neo-colonial order. That's the global order we are in now. That you can do the mining here, you can do all the hard work. The farmer works hard, to produce something, but the people who collect the wealth are somewhere else, and the farmer gets peanuts. Even the middlemen get more than the farmer. That is a Babylonic system. So it depends on arranged systems, of course, and currencies, institutions. Those institutions determine who benefits most. And so what often results in the places where wealth is retained, you have materialism, consumption, and dependence. You don't have a balance in development. So on the surface, it appears strong, but because it is built on injustice, it is prone to crisis. So here we have in the current world order, there's a system where economic Babylon, where the control of money, the control of markets, the control of value determines who really, really holds the power. Your owning resources doesn't matter very much. And this is the system God is judging. It's a system God is judging. And we know that it's downfall. So again, still sticking with Revelation, It says in 18, 1 to 3, after this I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was made bright with his glory, and he called out with a mighty voice. Now you notice the player here is a very prominent angel, uh, whose influence, whose image fills the whole earth. Okay. It needs something like this to deal with the spirit of Babylon. It needs something like this to deal with this system as we look at the global financial setup, um, that has so controlled the world. Um, and it's an unjust system. And we see God is not unaware of it, but we see in this revelation. By the way, time in the past, I did quite a big discussion on the book of Revelation, which unfortunately, I think it was 2 years ago. Our videos were hacked and everything came down. It was one of the most powerful series we had. I'll have to re-record them sometime. The fact that somebody hacked and destroyed all of them was just clear that the enemy did not want them to be heard. Um, but our understanding of the book of Revelation, don't post this into the future. The Babylonic system is there. It's been there, by the way. It's been there from way, way back. It's there right now. And I'll have another infographic I'm going to show in a moment. Now, the judgment here says that she's become a dwelling place for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for every unclean and detestable beast, for all nations, all nations. There is no nation that is left out. All nations have drunk the wine of the passion of our sexual immorality. And this is referring primarily in the Bible when you talk about sexual immorality. You're dealing with involvements with the satanic beings, whether it is through idolatry, the worship of Baal and Ashtaroth, and so on, or you know, uh, through more, less direct. There are some other ways in which people either consult the stars and things like that for both politics and business. But it says all nations have drunk, all nations. It's a system that has infected. Jesus said that you cannot serve God and mammon. Um, and the way he put it, mammon is a very powerful force. You're either serving God or serving mammon. And mammon is one of the things that Satan offers. Those who, when you remember, even offered to Jesus, he said, all the glories of this kingdom, everything in it has been given to me. I'll give it to you if you'll worship me. Now, many, many men and women have fallen for that temptation. Says the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her. So we know that this affects leadership at the top levels, and the merchants of the earth have grown rich from the power of our luxurious living. Now, this may have sounded strange some time back, but not anymore. I think now, if you're really following what's going on, not anymore. It's very, very evident that some of the most powerful people on earth and the wealthiest people on earth have actually totally beholden to witchcraft. We call it witchcraft in Africa, but even worse. Okay, so this is the pyramid of economic Babylon. So look at the global financial systems, because the future is really going to be a reset. I know there are those who are talking of a COVID-19 reset. No, there's a reset the enemy is trying to do. There's a reset God is doing. So God is clear about his own reset. So you see, again, talking about, and this is a picture of the global economy. At the base, you have the countries that depend on import, heavy on imports. They are ensured to be in debt. Mr. Sepuya shared with me something which I wish I put up on here, showing you how much debt. Let me see if I can just read it out to you. The system, the current system enslaves nations by debt. It is a tool. It's not just the way economics works. No. Just listen to this. The top 25 countries' debt to IMF. This was from David Sepuya sent this to me. Number one is Argentina. Argentina owes IMF $56.8 billion. So some of these countries you go to, they look very glizzy on top and so on, but they are in debt. It's like coming to my house, huh? And you find a very fantastic house with all kinds of nice, shiny things. But when you check, you realize, hey, the house is actually in debt. If the banker comes knocking, by the mine is not in debt. So I'm just giving an illustration. Mine is debt free. But the guy comes in and says, you have a nice car, you have all these glizzy things, but they don't belong to you. They belong to the bank or whoever loaned you money. Argentina, 56.8 billion. Ukraine, 14.1 billion. Egypt, 9.4 billion. Pakistan, 8.9 billion. Ecuador, 8.5 billion. This is IMF owned. Bangladesh, 3.9 billion. Cote d'Ivoire, 3.5 billion. Kenya, $3.5 billion. These are the debts to IMF. Top 25. Ghana, 3.3 billion. DRC, the country we're talking about, 3 billion. Costa Rica, 2.7 billion. Sri Lanka, 2.2 billion. Ethiopia, 2.1 billion. Jordan, 1.9 billion. Tanzania, 1.8 billion. Cameroon, 1.6 billion. Zambia, 1.4 billion. Morocco, 1.3 billion. Uganda here on this list is number 19, 1.2 billion. Senegal, 1.2 billion. Madagascar, 900 million. Rwanda, 700 million. Jamaica, 600 million. Papua New Guinea, 500 million. Guinea, 400 million. Debts. Now, when you begin to start looking at the servicing of these debts, you realize how much money is this World Bank IMF making. This is a system of debt. It's a Babylonic system. And it also ensures that everything you own, even our oil now, most of the income ends up paying off this money. So it's a very clever way of getting money from you without, by making you work. One of the reasons why the tax man is so hard on us is because they've got to pay the loans. Besides looking after the country. And one of the really irritating things is seeing money being wasted. And those who don't really work are the ones spending the money. The people in business who labor are being strangled by the taxman. This is the Babylonic system. That is what it is. And if you understand it, you would pray that God dismantles it because it's a system of slavery. You work for someone else. And then you have the raw materials. So you have the import reliance, then you have the raw materials, labor, natural resources. Okay, as you go up, the value moves up. Then you have the value extraction. You have industries, manufacturing, technology, innovation, multinational companies. Now, a lot of those things happen outside Africa. But the low things, the things that are down are Africa. Okay. Then you go up to the currencies and monetary systems. These are the ones who can play with cash, exchange rates, and so on. Global financial institutions, the IMFs of this world, and so on. Rules and policies which are made to ensure that certain orders are kept. And then you have data and technology control, Wealth stays at the top. Remember the Babylonic system? Well, it's a system designed to ensure that the people at the top control everything. By one little rule, they will make it either World Trade something or UN something. It's a rule. It applies across the world. But it's been thought through. So you're down here laboring, but nothing comes up. This is a Babylonic system. And the higher you are in the pyramid, the more control you have over wealth and over outcomes. Now, what has emerged and what is emerging, if you're not following, you don't have to go into all the gory details because the details are extremely gory, is the realization now. I don't know how many CEOs, one time I'll do a research, so many CEOs in the US have resigned because of being linked with, you're following the Epstein story, the Epstein files, I'll just first show that one before I show the next one. So a long scandal involving a global sex trafficking enterprise that was masked by extreme wealth. When it came out, there were conspiracy theories, conspiracy theories. You know, it is said now the difference between conspiracy theory and conspiracy fact is a few months. A lot of things that came up during COVID, which were conspiracy theories, now they are conspiracy fact, and they're not even being trumpeted loud enough. Yeah. So this has now come out, it's being exposed, it's in the news. We're not even getting the full details. If the mainstream was really doing what it normally does, we should be seeing a lot of stuff on the news. It's not there. It's heavily edited because unfortunately some of the people who control these things are the ones who also control the media. So this man, Epstein, leveraged relationships in between 2005 2019 with very powerful figures in politics, billionaires. You know, the guys at the top of the pyramid. Royalty, you heard about Prince Andrew, who was left in disgrace and actually was arrested recently. Finance to facilitate the systemic abuse of minors. They'll get little girls, little boys, rape them, and now it's been shown they would even murder them. Talk of human sacrifice. It's not only in Africa, friends. It isn't. High level. Eat their flesh, drink their blood. You know, these things are out there. It is, he was arrested. He secured a non-prosecution agreement, and he was put in jail. They say he committed suicide. Some people don't believe he's dead. He's one of his enablers. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison. Big people involved, big banks. You know, so these are people at the top of the pyramid. They were involved in fact, I watched a video of the daughter of Jeffrey Epstein, who she came out confessing, saying, "Look, I grew up in this household where we were told our God is Baal. Baal, I'm talking about Baal, the ancient biblical Baal." She was repeatedly raped by relatives and so on. It's just the stories are gory. They're really gory. And they are coming out. These are the people who are the top of the pyramid. Okay. So it again tells you who controls the Babylonic system. Who controls the Babylonic system. But God has begun to judge the system. If you've been around the sessions we are talking about, I think this is the right time to show a slide that I'd skipped, one of those infographics. Now, I'm going to make a very brief comment on this, just to say that the world is under shaking. There's a lot of shaking. God is shaking the nations. The term VUCA, you've heard about, I've talked about it on several platforms. It's a very volatile world. It's uncertain. It is complex and it's ambiguous. That's what VUCA. Actually, what that is recognizing is that God is shaking the nations. He's shaking the nations. He talks about it. He will shake the heavens and the earth. That's a scripture which we've used in other meetings. Two scriptures there. I told you today I'm looking at the biblical lens. And the reason why this is relevant for us, if we read Haggai 2 for the topic, this was historical, but it's relevant for now. Let's read both scriptures. It says, "For thus says the Lord of hosts, yet once more in a little while," Haggai 2, "I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and dry land. I will shake all nations, all nations, all nations, all nations, all nations, so that the treasures of all nations, all nations, all nations shall come in, and I'll fill this house with glory." That includes the treasures of Africa. Then he says the silver is mine and the gold is mine. So you see the shaking of nations is linked to gold and silver and treasures. Why? Because God has an agenda on the earth. "And the latter glory of this house shall be greater than the former, says the Lord of hosts, and in this place I will give peace." Now, Hebrews quotes this. In case you think it was fulfilled in that time, Hebrews still quotes in chapter 12, verse 26, "At that time his voice shook the earth, and now he has promised, yet once more I'll shake not only the earth, but also the heavens." And this phrase, "yet once more," indicates the removal of things that are shaken. That includes Babylonic systems. That is, things that have been made in order that the things that cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken. So the world system, the financial system, the world order, which is serving Babylon, is one of those things that God is shaking. And the shaking, I don't know how long it's going to last, but the ultimate thing is to bring it down. Okay. Let's offer to God acceptable worship with reverence. Okay, I'm not going to detailed talk about that, but just to make the point that that is what is been happening. So I want to, let me give you this infographic, and then this is what how I see it. And you may not agree with me, but this is something that is, if you analyze, when the US went into Venezuela, there was a lot of talk. They want their oil, blah, 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 blah. Actually, the reality is they don't need their oil. But what is now becoming evident, and I'm seeing it in the press now, is that there is a major redrawing of the world order. And it seems, should appear, that the Trump and his team have deliberately gone against what was evolving. They closed the Panama Canal, which had a lot of access to China. They went to Venezuela, one of the largest producers of oil, to China. And they went in when the Chinese foreign minister was visiting. They timed their visit just like a rub in the face. So that supply to China has gone down. And then they go into Iran. And with all you're seeing about the Straits of Hormuz, basically, China has issues now with oil because those were the two major sources was getting oil from. Europe also has issues with oil. The supply from Russia dried up, was closed off. That Nord Stream pipeline was blown up. We'll never know who blew it up. Now, in just this short time, the US, I think, has become the largest supplier of oil. They're talking of Greenland now. So the world is shifting. Now, whether or not you agree with what's happening is not the point. The point is to realize that it appears there's a very deliberate plan to shift the world from the order, the order that has been there. I believe it's an opportunity. I don't hear much about Africa, but it's an opportunity which we need to seek God about, to know and pray for our leaders and get involved, so that when the chains are removed, we can. Now, some of the deals they're making, I totally don't agree with as well. Some of the deals of course, they have to be equal in terms of benefit. If it's a Babylonic system, it will still be an equal exchange. There must be benefit for the people. And that's what we need to watch out for. Is there benefit in Venezuela for the people, for the ordinary people? Iran is far from not yet over. What will we begin to get as a benefit? For this to happen, we need to have people who can negotiate for the continent, for the countries, who understand, who are not going to just sell out, as it were. But this you can see as an infographic showing what is evolving. It seems to be very deliberate. It's not by chance. Past secured Venezuela, went to Iran. Greenland is being talked about now, and all this. So the world is shifting. If you thought the world map will remain as it was, it looks like it is changing before our very eyes, but it's not happening like a snap thing. What we need to look out for and engage as a generation is, where is Africa in this? Right. I need to begin winding up. I did mention this in the last presentation. As we look into the future, trophies are good outcomes from bad disruptions. Now, I do hope that will be a result from what's happening in the Middle East. We'll see. But I hope that's what will happen eventually. Wild cards are things that you did not predict that change everything. Okay. Often they're seen in a negative sense. Yeah. I would like to believe that we'll have more trophies than wild cards. Wild cards change things negatively, very, very negatively. Okay. As I wrap up, we've looked at the evolution of global economies from prehistoric times, from barter trade and all that. And just to say that even where we are now, things are shifting. We haven't talked about the emerging things like cryptocurrencies and so on. Um, but I'd want to say that those are still be mediums of exchange, even if they operate. The end of the day, it is how we develop real value. And if you follow what's happening in terms of we're not going to savings and investments, I think that will come later. The billionaires in the US are buying land. People like Bill Gates, they are buying so much land. You know, they know where real value is. Now, even with the more recent gold and silver, they've had a lot of turbulence, but that is real value. It's been real value from biblical times. It's not going to change. So the thing is with us, we do not have much room to play in it, but those are things we should be investigating. How we can get involved in a country like ours, which is exporting a lot of gold. How can you be part of that? If you're a business person, where there are legal ways to get involved. Where can that be? Um, yeah. So for practicalities, that is at the end of the day, when you look at things like cryptocurrencies, they're still means of exchange. But the real thing is doing real production in land, in things um, that directly support humanity. All right, I'd like to give, this is the last slide I have, then we can have a discussion. I did share this last time. I just want to share it again. Psalm 68, verse 30 to 31. Say, summon your power, O God, by which you have worked for us because of your temple at Jerusalem. Remember again, connect this with Haggai, the glory of the latter house shall be greater than the former, your temple at Jerusalem. It says, because of your temple. Nowadays it's not a physical temple, it's a church, the people of God. You are the temple of the Holy Spirit, the church collectively, the temple. Because of what God is doing through the temple, in the bride, his temple, it says, kings shall bear gifts to you. In other words, resources will come. Then it goes ahead and says, rebuke the beasts that dwell among the reeds. Beasts that dwell among the reeds can be taken as water beasts or water spirits in our case. These are demonic beings. The herd of bulls with the calves of the people. Mhm. Again, you can look at that in a certain way. You have bulls. They are bull organizations, bull nations. They are big. They have big horns, and they are playing on their horns with the calves of the people. Unequal, a very unequal situation. You have a herd of bulls with the calves of the people. This is a picture of an unjust system, a system that suppresses, that even kills. It says, trample underfoot those who lust after tribute. Those who lust after tribute. We talked about the top of the pyramid, the top of the Babylonic pyramid. Trample them underfoot and scatter the people who delight in war. One of the ways in which the Babylonic system controls the world is through wars, whether they're international wars or wars on the continent. You'll hear stories of people, a village in either Sierra Leone or Congo, the war starts and then people flee. The next thing you know, they are mining in the area. Scatter the people who delight in war. Now, the result of this says nobles shall come from Egypt. And we've elsewhere talked about Egypt and Kush. These are African references to territories in Africa. Kush shall hasten to stretch out our hands to God. And of interest is that word nobles. It's the Hebrew word chashman, Chashman. It only appears once in the scriptures. And what does it refer to? Extraordinarily wealthy princes, people who are capacious in resources. In other words, they have a lot of resources. Leaders endowed with abundance for kingdom purposes. It says, Cashmans shall come from Africa. So as we look at the lens of the future, through the biblical lens. This time, not last time I showed you the predictions of IMF, World Bank, and the like. Now I'm giving you the biblical lens. It's a prophetic language which points to Africa as a source of righteous wealth, raised not for exploitation, but for redemptive blessing. And we have a little glimpse of this in the book of Acts, where we see a man of great wealth, Acts chapter 8, education and influence, whom God met in a synagogue. No, he didn't meet didn't meet him in a synagogue. He met him along the road, not in a synagogue, along a trade route. So the God sent the gospel to Africa through the marketplace, revealing a pattern. Africa's economic gates are prophetic entry point for the gospel. So as we look at the future, I can see from the lens of the geopolitics, but I also look at the biblical lens. The biblical lens tells us the future of Africa has to do with God liberating the resources of the continent and raising sons and daughters of the continent to be churchmen. I pray you're one of them. I pray you're one of them. But if you're going to be one of them, then God has to take you through a very serious process. Because one of the things that money does is it corrupts. And if God cannot trust you with money, you cannot be one of these churchmen. One of the things, and those of you who have been following this series, I'm pretty sure among you are people that God is going to raise very, very powerfully in the financial area. But there has to be a release from the spirit of Babylon, because you can't be serving God when the spirit of Babylon is ruling in you. So he will do that. He will take you through all kinds of experiences. As you look at the future, I still believe that the message is arise and shine, Africa, for your season has come. So thank you very much for your attention. There's a lot of different resources I've used to put these things together. And I think I'll stop here. I'm way over about time, or maybe way over time. I do hope that this series have tickled your interest. They've challenged you to think. And for those of you called the business sphere, you're beginning to think wider than where you are. Thank you very much.